Hello and welcome to the Jason Kidd episode of the Hoop Theory podcast, aka episode 107, which is in honor of his career total triple-doubles 107, which ranks 6th on the all-time list. Recording this one on the evening of Friday, January 17th in the year of our Lord 2025. My name is Logan Wertman, and as usual, I'm joined by my paternal co-host, Jacob Roth. Ooh. Jacob, how's it going?
It's going good. It's been a minute. But glad to be back and should be a lot of fun.
Yeah, how does it feel to be on the Jason Kidd episode? It's been so long, I forgot how I even spin it over to you.
Yeah, no, it feels good. Didn't realize you only had, I feel like the term triple-double has been ruined for us just because of the sheer, insanity that we're currently living in and maybe springboarding from the basketball we watch into there's just always going to be those all the time just because of how insane athletes are getting. But I think it feels good. I didn't realize you only had 107, I guess is where that tangent started. Just because your brain, you're like, oh, Jason Kidd, triple doubles. And prior to the guys ahead of him, LeBron, Jokic, Russ, right?
So he was 4 or 3. Yeah, he would have been third before those 3 passed him.
Yeah. So and he was that guy. Is Oscar Robertson another one?
Robertson and Magic are the 2 above him, which are both older than him.
That's a terrible miss that I just was blanking on.
Yeah. So Jokic is 3rd right now all time.
Is 3rd.
He just passed Magic.
Westbrook's 1, isn't he?
1. Mm-hmm.
But because we talked about that when the Nuggets signed Westbrook, and I'm sure we'll talk about that a little bit more today, but feels good to be on the Jason Kidd ep.
Yeah, Westbrook has actually tripled his total from last season in triple-doubles because he had 1 last year. He got to 198 to 199. Now he's quadrupled it because he's at 203 now, I believe, because he was at 202 before just the other night when Jokic and Westbrook became the first teammates in NBA history to both have triple-doubles in the same game multiple times in the same season, which is pretty wild.
Yeah.
But yeah, for those listening, though, we should probably touch on the elephant in the room of us not putting out any episodes recently. It's been quite a while. But that adjective I used for Jacob at the beginning, paternal co-host. Jacob was on paternity leave, which was the source of the hiatus at first. And then we've got, just holidays and sickness and whatnot going around. So it's been a few attempts in the chamber before we've gotten this one to ignite, but we are here doing that finally now. So we're glad to be back, but I don't know how regular the schedule is going to be coming back, but we're going to try at least to get some more of these out. And I've started doing weekly Patreon videos just because I've felt bad over the hiatus that we haven't really been getting in a lot of content out. So I've been doing those and I'll continue to do that. And that brings me to thanking all the listeners for listening and asking them to please be sure to hit us up on Patreon or buy me a coffee if you would like to support us. That's patreon.com/hoop theory and buymeacoffee.com/hoop theory. All our links can also be found in the description of both the show and the episode, wherever you're watching or listening to this. We would also greatly appreciate it if you would rate the show, leave a like or a comment. Of course, be sure to subscribe and follow the feed. And lastly, we'd also love it if you sent something into our mailbag for us to read and react to. Basketball related or otherwise, you can send those over to hooptheory.mailbag@gmail.com, which reminds me, I haven't even checked our mailbag in quite a while now. So I'll be interested to see if we have any more. I know there were a couple we hadn't got to yet, but maybe there's even a handful now. Who knows? But yeah, we'll get to that another day in the future. Today, what we're going to be focusing on is the Western Conference of the NBA, just because there's a lot of teams to go over if we wanted to tackle the whole league. Seems a bit ambitious, so we decided to split it up.
And the East feels like there's like a giant question mark in Jimmy Butler that could be exploding at any moment. I guess he's playing tonight for the first time since his 7-game suspension, but the West has a lot of great stuff, a lot of cool storylines, a lot of, didn't see that coming type of stuff. So it should be a lot of fun.
Yeah. Also, we're going to be piggybacking off of the last episode that we put out, which is our preseason predictions, because last episode we did do was still one of the preseason ones. So that will be a lot of the main focus today. You know, it's kind of like a lot of NBA fans, at least more casual fans, often say, you kind of hear this a lot, that people don't start paying attention to the NBA season until Christmas. And so now that we are a couple weeks into January at this point, we can kind of, refresh those of you who fit that description, and kind of approach it like most of the NBA fan base does, I guess, and just kind of catch up on what's been going on and looking at what surprises there are based off of what our preseason thoughts, were going in with a lot of these teams. And so I have some power rankings kind of mapped out for the Western Conference. Not super in love with how I've tiered it, though. It is a bit convoluted and confusing, especially in the middle. The West is just kind of always a mess, I feel like, but that has continued to this year. But at least in terms of standings, the top 3 right now are OKC, Houston, and Memphis, which the Rockets are definitely a bit of a surprise there. The Thunder are the opposite of a surprise. That's definitely who we would have both picked as the first seed. And then Memphis is not necessarily a surprise, because I remember mentioning the possibility of them being a top 3 seed, coming right back to where they left off after having a year from hell. I was not expecting, though, them to do that while having another year from hell, basically. Like, injury-wise, they have not been a whole team well at all.
Yeah, it's been tough for them to get the guys out consistently, but I think the biggest thing is, like, it's been better than last year, I guess, is the only way to put it.
Yeah, definitely has been better.
Because last year they played, 37 different players or something egregious like that. So it's been tough this year compared to, like, a healthy season, but it has not been even the Pelicans are feeling kind of what the Grizzlies last year felt.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about them later, I'm sure. But yeah, it's kind of wild when you, like, because, like, obviously in your brain you kind of position all these teams, and then you look at the stands, you're like, well, this is not what my brain ranked in position these teams at all. This is not what I thought.
But yeah, Memphis is really interesting. So I guess we'll just kind of start there with them. With their year from hell that they had last year coming to this year, I think this year has definitely been, like you said, there's a lot of injuries. They've struggled to have guys out on the floor, including their best players, really. I mean, Ja, for the most part. Jaren Jackson Jr., I think, has been available most this season. Maybe he's played every game, to be honest. I have no idea. But he's been on it, like, with a bullet, their best player this season for sure, Jaren Jackson Jr. But everybody that they've had fill in, like, just step into the starting lineup or just step into the rotation, has been very good. Just weirdly.
Well, it's almost like last year forced them to be like, we kind of have to be ready. And it like has weirdly helped this season.
Yeah. Like Scottie Pippen Jr. has been like a real, like, one of the best backup guards in the league, honestly, like, this season.
More than just a famous person's son. Like he's more than, because, like, Bronny and there's, like, guys who are like, oh, you're literally just ex-NBA Hall of Famer or future Hall of Famer's child. That's why you have a roster spot. And that's truly what I thought Scottie Pippen was going to be. Scottie Pippen Jr. was going to be probably for his entire career. But you're not joking when he might be one of the best guards coming off the bench in the NBA.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's really impressive.
Yeah, and then Jake LaRavia as another young guy that's just stepped in, and, like, it's weird. They've got some people buried on the bench, like John Conchar, who's like a guy just a few years ago who was one of these weirdly successful, like, role players that they dug out of nowhere. But then he's, like, behind these new guys who are kind of, like, replacing him. And they've just got so many guys that are serviceable on the NBA court.
Yeah.
And that's honestly just a huge credit to Taylor Jenkins, number one, as the head coach there, I would say. And then also another thing that it kind of brings me into Nuggets stuff, which I want to kind of avoid. I don't even know if I'll get into any Nuggets thoughts this episode because we need to get to so many other teams. But one adjacent thought to the Nuggets is how good Jay Huff has been in a Memphis Grizzlies uniform. And he was just completely buried on the Nuggets bench last year when we have like one of the best or one of the worst backup big situations. Like the past 3 years, we probably have the worst one in aggregate of the past 3 years in the NBA. And he couldn't get a single minute like all season other than garbage time.
But I also feel like if you had to like boil down what is the biggest strength that Taylor Jenkins has that Michael Malone doesn't, it would be like, you're a little rough, but let's let you play because you'll probably figure it out. I feel like Malone has to see it for like half a season in practice before he'll let it even sniff the court. And like, obviously Michael Malone's a great head coach, but like, if you had to be like, oh, what's one thing that Jenkins might do a little better, it would be using those guys. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's literally what his team is now because their starting five is a revolving door of day to day. Like, that's just what it is. So.
No, yeah, for real. But Jay Huff, he's the latest addition in this like list of centers or just people in general, but mostly centers that I felt like, oh, that guy looks good. We should play him a little bit. I've always kind of thought they had some stuff to them and then they move on to greener pastures and then all of a sudden are good. Like Jay Huff and now, or before Isaiah Hartenstein was the one for the longest time that I was like, how does he not get any minutes here? I don't understand. Like everybody else I remember in the Nuggets world was like, get him off the floor. Nobody really liked him all that much, but I was like, I don't know, him with Facu Campazzo in the second unit, like as a guy that just goes downhill, puts pressure on the rim, he seems like he's pretty competent. But he just never got a chance really. And now he's a $100 million center. So
Vando was another guy.
Jared Vanderbilt.
Yeah.
That's another guy. JaVale McGee was already pretty established, but he came in and was like, we couldn't use him at all for some reason. I don't know why. It's just like the backup center position. We are seeing it again this season. I am convinced, and a lot of other Nuggets fans are convinced that it's just cursed because now Dario Saric is having the worst year of his career by far. And it's not even close. And he's 29.
Yeah, and it's weird because they don't even like expect him to like sometimes you get into that second unit and you're like, oh, we need there to be like a clone of our first unit guys that can. They don't expect any of those backup centers to do remotely Jokic things. It's just I don't know. It is weird. That Nuggets thing, but I feel like Huff is kind of sneaky. One of those guys that's like, Edey has not worked out in the way that I kind of maybe hoped he would. Like he's not been terrible, but he's not been like this demonstrative, like, oh, that's exactly what they needed type of guy.
Yeah, he's not the clear rookie of the year, but he's still in the running for it, I would say.
But like having other guys like Huff fill in and do that big work, especially with this. I don't even know how many guys have played for the Grizzlies, but I bet you it's a pretty solid number.
Probably pretty solid. And they look
pretty decent. So, I mean, 26 and 15.
Yeah.
Third. Yeah. I mean, and almost it's kind of like I look at the West this year like you looked at the East last year. It seems like it's kind of just a race for the second seed. You're not going to get to be playing at home the entire playoffs. That's just the Thunder.
OKC.
They've just got it. So from 2 until, 10, 12. What's the gap between those teams? Oh, that's a 8-game gap, but
still 2 to 12, 8. Yeah. So San Antonio is 19 and 20 in the 12th spot, and then at the 2 spot, we got 27 and 13. So it's just kind of crazy that there's 12 teams that are at least around 500, a game from 500 or above.
Yeah.
In the Western Conference, there's 12 of them. So, and then, right after 12 is where it drops off down to the Blazers. But, so Memphis, though, been a really good team, even with all of these injuries. Jalen Wells has stepped in and been I like their full-time starter at the 3. Marcus Smart has barely played this season. People are talking about them as making a move, possibly, to go get Cam Johnson, who's like, he's kind of the secondary or the second headliner on the trade deadline this season behind, obviously Jimmy Butler is the headliner this year, but Cam Johnson, I'd say, is definitely the second one.
And honestly, for a lot of these good teams, I feel like Cam Johnson is the headliner because the resources required to get Jimmy Butler without blowing up what you have are just not attainable. Like,
yeah,
if you're a team that's in the position now to win, you don't have the things to put together to go get Jimmy Butler without blowing everything up and not knowing how it's going to work. Like,
yeah.
I feel like a Kings are maybe a type of team like that tier and below. We're struggling. We're trying to get stuff figured out. Maybe we blow stuff up to go get Butler, but I don't think Cam Johnson Cam Thomas is going to be a very, very hot commodity for like teams that are already good because he's doesn't cost that much in cap. Resources is a different story in capital, but in terms of fiscally how he hits your cap, it won't be that dramatic at all.
Yeah, and then I guess moving on, I guess I have the Grizzlies to touch on that. I have the Grizzlies third, so exactly where they are in the standings is where I have them in my power rankings for the West. But to jump into actually doing the power rankings, I guess, in order, let's go with number 1 in the West, and that's the Thunder right now is who I have. And no coincidence, they are also number 1 in the standings. I promise not every team is going to be like that, but these first 2 are. The Thunder have been, they're a team that they're like I don't know what you call it, but you're like your favorite team out West. You got the Celtics.
My pet team.
Yeah, your pet team.
I've been on the Thunder grind though since like the torture chamber sent James Harden to the Shadow Realm. Like I've been, and that wasn't bubble, was it?
The bubble, yeah.
Okay, so I've been like that's always been kind of my team. I'm not like a 2-team guy, but like I watched a lot of Thunder games before they were the monstrosity that they are now.
And it got even became more of a thing when they got Chet.
Yeah,
like one of your guys. Yeah, but without Chet for most of the season, they've still been rolling.
Good.
They're 34-6 at the moment. And I think they just broke the Cavs' second win streak. They were on a long win streak, their second one of this crazy season so far for the Cavs, which we won't spoil for the next episode where we go over the East. But the Thunder are performing very, very well right now. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is a lot of people's favorite for the MVP. Not everybody's. Obviously, there's Jokic in Denver, but those are definitely
favorite when an MVP gets crowned because officials don't officiate the rule book the way that everyone agreed that it was going to be officiated. That's my favorite thing.
And you're saying Shai is a perpetrator?
Booty ball. It's the worst thing ever. He does what Trae Young does, but just on the elbow. Like, it's so just annoying. Yeah. Like, if the NBA's would be like, we're not going to let offensive players get away with it. And then Shai's like, do you like my Skims commercial? And then they just like let it happen. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
Sick, bro. I love that. And I'm not saying that he's an insane player even without it, because I think he only got to the free throw line like 5 times in that 20-point massacre of the Cavs a couple nights ago. But like the dude averages like 18 free throws.
Yeah.
And it's like, and part of it's being like smart and savvy. I get that. But like 70% of them are literally just like, that thing the NBA was going to crunch down on and not let offensive players get away with like 2 years ago? Yeah, I just do that like literally better than anyone alive.
Yeah. No, I get that complaint for sure. I don't think he does it like all the time. I don't know if he's quite as bad as Trae Young, but he definitely does do it a good amount.
I think it's the when he does it. He's
in
like
big moments.
It's like always like time's coming down. I'm going to go to it now.
Yeah.
You're like, what?
Yeah. And there's also like kind of a fine line, or not, kind of a blurred line, I should say, where sometimes it'll be more of like a lurch thing where he'll go forward and rip through a little bit. And those are also supposed to not be called offensive fouls, or defensive fouls rather, anymore. But yeah, he's really good at blending walking the line, towing the line, where it's like,
which if you ain't cheating, air quotes on cheating, because he's still like making the free throws.
Yeah.
But if you ain't cheating, you ain't trying, and the Thunder are trying to win. And guess what? They're doing a pretty damn good job of it at an 85% win rate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Shea's one of the league leaders in points. Him, Jokic, and Giannis have been like fluctuating back and forth between leading the league, and it looks like Shea is in first right now after Jokic had a couple like really low point totals in a row when the Nuggets all of a sudden got really good, started playing really well, and then that's when Jokic is scoring like 20 points. It's funny how that works.
How many does Shea have a game?
31.6. And then Giannis, I believe, is like right behind there. I think Jokic is probably down closer to 31 now after, I think he had 19 last game and then 23 maybe the game before. Let me check that really quick. Yeah, Jokic is 30.6 now, so he's a whole point behind Shea now. But at one point, Jokic was leading the league in points per game, and I think he might still lead the league in total points. I'm not sure on that one though, because he's missed a few games now. Those are stacking up, which is unusual. But at one point Jokic was in first with totals for points, rebounds, and assists league wide. So it's going to be crazy if he does actually end up with that. I'm pretty sure nobody's even ended up in the top 5 with all of those. So that's going to be really interesting to see it feels like he's inevitably going to be ending up at least the top 5 in all those. And also he's like 5th in steals totals this year. So really, I just keep throwing in, little nuggets of Nuggets talk as we go along here, but try to stay on topic with the Thunder. But yeah, without Chet, they've still been good with Isaiah Hartenstein getting healthy shortly after Chet went down with his hip fracture. Sounds like Chet's supposed to be coming back here pretty soon, within the next few weeks, it sounds like, around the All-Star break probably.
From what I understand, it's supposed to be a little bit before the All-Star break.
Okay.
But he might not. He'll be cleared before, but might not play till after.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that makes sense. But yeah, Isaiah Hartenstein has been huge for them, just in the department of being huge, honestly. Just being size that they have on their basketball team has been a good change for them. And once they get both of those guys healthy at the same time, it's going to be interesting to see how formidable their team can really be, because that gives them just a lot of flexibility in different lineups they can roll out, different ways they can play. And that's going to be scary for sure. But Thunder, yeah, I think both of our favorites in the Western Conference for sure. I would probably argue might deserve to be the favorite to win the title, overall right now.
For sure.
In both conferences.
By a lot.
Oh, you think so? I didn't want to step too much on the Celtics. I know they're just kind of coasting right now, I don't know how worried you are.
I don't think worried is the word I'd use, but the games that they're not showing up in just piss me off.
Yeah.
And it's also a suffering for success type of thing, where I'm I know how good this team could be. Mm-hmm. They're just not doing it.
Yeah.
If I was putting down my own money, I'm still putting it on. I'm ride or die for my boys, my Celtics. But
yeah.
If Vegas's odds didn't have the Thunder as the favorites to win the title, Vegas is stupid.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they do.
No, I'm sure they do. Because they look good. They show up in every big game. The only thing they haven't been tested outside of at that big spot, but again, they kind of perfectly got their bigs back. I think an injury to J-Dub or Shea could be a big problem. Oh, yeah. But that's not going to happen. It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
So it's a fragile tank, if that makes it's this thing that I feel so confident about, but if one thing goes wrong, I'm wait, I might not feel good about that at all. But that's any team. I think the Nuggets are like the worst team in basketball if Jokic isn't.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. I think Nuggets are more susceptible to that.
Very few teams are built to be like, oh, you lost one of your top two, slough it off.
But weirdly, we've had a number of them this year. That's definitely not normal. But as we talked about the Grizzlies,
and then the Celtics are like that. The Celtics haven't had their top 7. I don't think their entirety of their top 7 is played since KP's first game back.
Yeah,
there's always been Derek, one of the Jays, Derek. Anyway, that's the East. But yeah,
But Magic you're also right. Out east are like that with their best 2 players plus Mo Wagner, and then also Jalen Suggs went down. They're just like somehow still winning some close games. They're scoring the least amount of points in the league, but they're also allowing other teams to score the least in the league.
No, they are a living just that torture chamber or like energy I talked about.
Mm-hmm.
That is what it is like playing the Orlando Magic. They just drag you into the mud, and you're like, guess what? We can't score either. Have fun. And it's just a mud fight, and it's awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's also, I think I like it because it's not like they make some really clean teams look sloppy almost.
Yeah.
No, they do. It's like chaos, good defense. I don't even know how to describe it.
Mm-hmm.
It brings me joy. It really does.
Yeah, no, for sure. The Magic are definitely one of the more fun teams to watch, even with their lack of best players being there. But when they have those guys, for sure, that they're like, honestly, probably my league pass team in the East, to be honest. And then moving on in the Western Conference, I do have the Nuggets at 2 in the power rankings. I know that might be a little premature for some people. But I think we are catching our stride now.
Especially if it's like the last 2 weeks. I think that's like season as a whole, it'd be like that's a tough sell. But the last couple of weeks, I feel like for sure, just with how good they've looked against good teams. It's not like they're doing it against, we're beating up on the Pelicans a bunch of times.
Yeah.
They're like doing it against teams
Those
that
are the teams we lose to. Yeah. Yeah. But I'm not going to go into many Nuggets thoughts right now just because there's a lot of them. I'll save that for a little bit later. The third team, like I said before, I have the Grizzlies. The Rockets is who I have at 4, who are number 2 in the standings in real life. They are 27-13. So I basically just have them flipped around with the Nuggets, who are 24-16, were 24-15 before we just lost to the Rockets without Jokic, which wasn't fun. But hopefully Jokic is coming back healthy for the next game. He was supposed to play that Rockets game just all of a sudden right before he hurt his elbow in warmups. Still not really totally sure how severe that was, but that was the word on it. But the Rockets, yeah, so they're one of these teams that don't really have like a star, to be honest. I mean, Alpi is like, I would say there's one guy he's going to represent them in the All-Star game for sure, Alperen Şengün. But but he's like a debatable All-Star, I feel like, you know what I mean? Like they're like the 2 seed, not like the 2 seed. They are the 2 seed in the West, and they have basically no All-Stars, you could argue, which is just kind of funny, but
it feels like they have just like a lot of guys that like, you're probably wrong, but if you throw out their name, like you don't feel like Alpi's definitely like Şengün is for sure the most like, okay, that's like a legitimate all-star to say. But like if someone's like
I think it stops there, to be honest.
You don't think there's anybody else that if they threw out a name, they're not, I guess it's hard in the West, but there's just honestly, and this might be it kind of feels like the Clippers from like in that lull between superstar eras of the Clippers.
Yeah.
Like before they got this Kawhi Paul George group and after they lost Blake Griffin and Chris
CP3.
Paul.
Yeah.
It was just like 7 guys that you feel like could win 6th man of the year.
Yeah.
And they like were just feisty.
Mm-hmm.
But like Ime Udoka at the coaching spot has kind of just like turned all these offensive guys into like a little bit wiry on defense, I guess.
Oh yeah,
I don't know.
they are definitely mucking stuff up on defense. They're the ultimate, just like make everything uncomfortable when
No,
they're on
kind of like what
defense.
you thought Nick Nurse was going to do with that young Raptors team, where like everyone's long, everyone's big,
Yeah,
have fun.
Uh-huh.
But the Rockets just do that, and then
Uh-huh.
also have like the closest thing we have to Jokic outside of Sabonis in
Yeah.
the middle,
Uh-huh.
like orchestrating to a bunch of guys that offensively is what they got drafted for. They've just turned into defensive pieces.
Yeah,
I also think that
Jalen Green, at least. I would say a lot of the other guys are more defensive, like Tari Eason and Jabari Smith and Dylan Brooks, Amen
forget
Thompson.
Brooks,
Yeah,
my brain.
but Jabari Smith, I could see someone describing him as an offensive guy or a defensive guy, to be honest, when he was a prospect. But
Also, this is a thing. Are you ready to declare that one of the Thompson twins is a lot better than the other one? Apparently, this is like a topic of discussion that like people can pretend they're like the same and they're close, but one is definitely a way better player than the other.
I'm assuming you mean Amen is better.
Yeah,
Better than
I think that's what people's takes are. I haven't watched enough of either of them directly to be like, oh, for sure.
I mean,
Obviously,
I was just say, I mean, when they first started last year in the rookie season, it was the other way around. Asar got off to the crazy start, and Amen wasn't really playing. And now this year, it's been a little bit the other way around. Like Amen's been much more of a factor, I feel like, this year. But also fit wise, I feel like it's just more of a perfect situation for him than what Asar has in Detroit. There's just a lot less shooting on the team, or at least, with a lot of the guys that they can roll out there in Detroit. But, I don't know. I think there's a little bit of a debate to be had there, I guess. But I would probably, if I had to pick one, I would definitely pick Amen. I'm not going to disagree with that. Gun to my head, picking one. But also, I would have said that back when they were being drafted. That was kind of the what's it called? The breakdown
consensus
of them. Yeah, the consensus, or the description that they had coming into the draft by a lot of people was that Amen is like the star potential guy, and Asar is like the high quality role player. Like he does more role things than Amen does, which so far, honestly, both of them have been really good role players. Like even Amen's not a star, even though people are saying he's better. He's definitely a role player still, but he's really good at role player things. Like he's a very good defensive player. He plays like he's just kind of like a jumbo Bruce Brown in a lot of the ways. On offense, like guy that just cuts into open space, has really good intuitiveness on when to cut. I believe it's an intuition. I think I just made up a word there with intuitiveness. Intuition is definitely the word.
No, intuitiveness.
I think it's just intuition. How is that different? Isn't that just the noun form?
Has intuitiveness is like the quality of having intuition.
The state of having intuition. Anyways, I think they're, if it is a word, then they're interchangeable.
The ability, yeah, it's the same thing. Yeah.
Okay. But anyways, the thing I was saying about the Rockets, Amen Thompson is just, he's one of the more fun guys on that roster. But I'd say the Achilles heel with the Rockets, the thing that I have them lower in my power rankings than they are in the actual standings, is that offensively in the clutch, they just don't have like a go-to thing.
It's because they're all children.
Yeah. And even like their vets, like Fred VanVleet isn't the guy really that you want to be your number one option in that type of scenario. So they've struggled a little bit there.
Vet is a guy that wants to be the number one option that should not be.
Yeah. That's very true.
Just kidding. In his defense, I feel like he has improved that aspect of I'm putting this shot up immensely since he's gotten to Houston.
Yeah, it's weird how much he's improved in that, but he definitely has. I think Ime is probably a big person to credit with that one. But yeah, with the Rockets though, I think that that like restriction or limitation on them that they have of with their offense being able to create something when they really need to in the crunch time is what's going to hold them back. And then also, I think that they are playing at their absolute like peak effort and energy. Like they're giving their absolute all in these games. And I just don't know once we get to the playoffs if there's another level for them to go to in that department. I don't think that exists. So that's going to hurt them a little bit, when we're thinking about which of these teams can make it out of the West, really, is kind of how I'm viewing this question.
The way I interestingly saw it was somebody was like, kind of talking about like the Rockets and the playoffs and that type of thing. It's like somebody said, well, they already kind of play like it's playoff basketball because they muck everything up. Everything kind of slows down in games against the Rockets. It's not the same extent of playoff basketball, but like nothing is clean because of how they just go about defense.
Mm-hmm.
And but I kind of agree to the fact that like, what else can they do?
Yeah.
Like, unless they have like somebody emerge as that clutch time, crunch time offensive option, I feel like we've seen the best version of the Rockets already
this season. Sure. And even if they do get that guy, they're still going to have a little bit, like, there's going to be adjustment of the league average, the teams that they're playing come playoff time, all of them, their effort level and rotation is going to shrink. So, like, it's like going to be just better basketball on the court that they're going to be going against.
Are they in the Cam Thomas sweepstakes, do you think?
Cam Thomas or Cam Johnson?
Thomas.
I don't know if there is a Cam Thomas sweepstakes, but like Cam Johnson.
Are they not both up? I thought they both were.
Well, I mean, Cam Thomas is could be traded for, but I don't think he's really what everybody is going after. But I have heard a lot of people actually suggest Cam Thomas for the Rockets, though, which I don't mind that as a idea. But I also the thought I've heard behind it is that Cam Thomas can be their answer for like their lack of scoring creation. But also, I don't know if I would want Cam Thomas to be my like number one option in that scenario. He's definitely better at it, I would say, than anybody else on their team right now on the Rockets. And if they were to make a Cam Thomas deal, I don't know what they would give up exactly. It might be Jalen Green. And if that is the case, I don't know if I would do it.
What about Jimmy?
Jalen Green for Jimmy?
And then obviously there'd have to be more, but
yeah.
The hard part for them is they'd have to give up so many assets to make the money work.
Mm-hmm.
That would be the thing that's like the on-court product they have enough to like probably incentivize it for. But I guess they could they'd probably just offload overpaid Dylan Brooks or overpaid Van Vliet. Well, it'd have to be Dylan Brooks in this scenario. Probably.
So, because what does Jimmy make? Like 50?
That sounds right.
Paid 50 yet? He will be soon if he's not now. I think he has one more year on his deal. Spa track for Jimmy Butler.
48.7.
48.7. So damn near. So yeah,
next year
that would be
is a
tough.
Player option that's 52.
And I assume he's picking that up no matter where he goes, to be honest. Because I don't know if he's going to get a better deal than that long term.
And Van Vliet's at 42. Dylan Brooks is 22.
I forget that Van Vliet is at 42. That's just a bonkers number. So he could fit in there, but then they would need somebody to replace Van Vliet, which Reed Shepherd is waiting.
Is in the G League.
Putting up like 40-point triple doubles or whatever he did. So there's that.
That would be an interesting idea.
That would be.
Van Vliet and then probably Jalen Green. Would that be enough for is that enough of a win for Pat Riley?
I would think so.
Does he accept that?
I would. I mean, that and maybe a pick. I mean, I would take that if I was the Heat. For sure. In a heartbeat. But the thing is, with the Rockets, that's like it's just kind of crazy to do when you have this young, fun team that you're trying to figure out, feel out where things.
Oh, that actually might not work because going into next year, those two would cost $77 million combined.
Which two? Jalen Green and
Fred Van Vliet, because Van Vliet has next year's a team option, so they could be like,
oh, that works out kind of perfectly actually. Then, wow.
And then Jalen Green's making $33,333,333.
Interesting, that exact number, but which I don't think is terrible. It's definitely being overpaid for what Jalen Green is right now. But
in 4 years, he's only making 36,
which he might be that. Who knows?
I feel like with the way the cap grows, that he will definitely be that.
Depends on how much of a Jalen Green believer you are. There's some people kind of off that island now, but I'm definitely more on it, I'd say, than average, but not by a lot. I've never really been that big of a Jalen Green guy, to be honest, but I'm also holding what little stock I did have, if that makes sense. But yeah, so that is a fun, interesting idea. Brings Jimmy home to Houston, also, where he's from, Tomball, Texas. So that's honestly just kind of a perfect trade there. But yeah, what I was saying, it's just kind of crazy for the Rockets to do because of how good of a season they're having. Raphael Stone would have to have some major balls to pull off like a move like that. You know what I mean? To just like shake everything up when it's like you are having 10 times the season that a lot of people were projecting for you. And you're also very early on it too with this roster. Are you sure you want to like trade a lot of that off for a disgruntled with a star that has a very checkered history, who's not a shooter off the ball, you know?
I feel like
who's 36 years old or whatever he is.
That's true. I just feel like Ime and Jimmy would like hate each other, but like mutually respect each other.
Yeah, I think that would be a good match, honestly. For
like, there's not very many people I feel like could handle Jimmy Butler, and I feel like Ime's one of them.
Yeah, honestly,
I feel like Psycho Joe Mazzulla is also one of them, but Jimmy Butler's never wearing a Celtics jersey ever.
Yeah, that would be crazy. The world would have to end.
I would take an NBA hiatus. I would stop caring if Brad just decided to pop a cup of Molly and make that trade. I would kill myself.
Molly. Wow.
That's the only way he would have to be high out of his mind.
Anyway. No, I mean, it definitely wouldn't happen. Yeah, I would agree. That would be a much wilder move than even this Rockets one that we're suggesting.
Yeah.
Which isn't a crazy move, honestly. That's not that.
I feel like that's like the entertaining side of probable or possible.
Yeah,
not probable.
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely in the realms of like it's possible enough to the point that we're talking about it. You know what I mean? But it also would be, if that were to happen, that would be like like Raphael Stone better watch his moves. Like, you know, moving forward a little bit.
But what if it works and they go to the Western Conference Finals?
Obviously the upside of it is perfectly fine.
And you could potentially compete with the Thunder because you have a guy like Jimmy Butler.
I agree. But what if it doesn't go well? And how likely is it that it won't go well? You know what I mean? Like, it's not that outlandish to think that, it just doesn't work and things kind of fall apart a little bit.
35
and if that
it works,
were to
65
happen,
it doesn't, you think?
35 it works, 65 it does. I would say more 50-50 than that, honestly. But it's just the Rockets are really good right now. And just if he were to trade Jimmy Butler and it doesn't work, that he's like just mailed in his job. You know what I mean? Like, there's no coming back from that, I feel like.
Go big or go home, you know?
That's true, I guess. But who's Tillman Fertitta or whatever is the Rockets owner? Maybe he's into that type of thing. I mean, I haven't heard about him ever since, honestly, the Daryl Morey firing. But or not. I don't even think he got fired. I think he just stepped down, actually. Now I think about it. But
speaking of Daryl Morey, is his former lover, are they fifth on your list, or are they just fifth in the standings?
They are fifth in the standings. I have them very close to fifth in my power rankings. The team I do have at fifth is the Dallas Mavericks.
Oh, lame.
What did you think I was about to say?
I thought you were gonna like hard pivot and be like, Kings, bring back. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, no, I have the Dallas Mavericks. They are 7th right now in the standings by a little bit. But, they also have had a pretty rough past 2 weeks without Luka and Kyrie for most of those games also. So considering those things, they haven't been all that bad, to be honest.
Literally their entire offense is just gone. They've limped along okay.
Yeah, for the most part. They're just considering that, they have been like, I think the past 2 weeks, they've been like the 5th worst team, but it's not the worst team, Well,
they're up 20 on the Thunder right now.
They're up 20 on the Thunder right now? Is that what you just said?
That is what I said.
How late is it?
Halftime.
That's wild. What do they have?
63-43.
Wow, Thunder only scoring 43 points.
Kyrie's playing.
Huh.
14 points from PJ Washington.
Okay, nice. And how is Kyrie playing well?
Kyrie is 17.
Oh, so yeah, very well. He played terribly in the Nuggets game that he came back for. He was like 2 of 18.
Shea's not playing.
Okay, that makes more sense.
There's proof. Thunder kind of suck if Shea's not playing.
Yeah. But yeah, so the Mavericks are who I have at 5th, just with when they have like their full team back and healthy, which obviously is a big if, with Luka, having this pretty long injury that he's going through. I can't even remember what it is now. Was it a calf strain? Is that what Luka's out with?
So something, I thought it was leg.
Yeah, I think it is leg, but I don't remember if it was a calf strain or like torn something. Yeah, left calf strain. So yeah, his estimated reevaluation is going to be on February 2nd. So he's out for at least the rest of this month, maybe a little bit more.
Be dumb to bring him back before All-Star break, probably.
Yeah, I would imagine. So that definitely shakes things up in the West. They might fall into the play-in. Well, they are in the play-in right now, but like fall into it by the season end. That's where they'll be locked into. Perhaps, which is not a great place to find yourself in, but here in the West, there's really no other choice because of how many other good teams there are. But yeah, so that's my 5th team. Don't got a lot to say about them, I guess. Clay has been meh.
He's had like moments where like, oh.
Yeah, he's
had
big.
I feel like Clay this year was better than last year on the Warriors.
Oh, really? Maybe more consistent. I'm not sure. I guess. What were you thinking on that?
It just feels that like he's had more, and maybe like the Warriors just last year just felt so weird. It was only because Steph was doing things. Is what it felt like. Clay and Draymond were like not helping things last year, and it feel like in the big moments Clay's had for the Mavs, it's been like moments they needed him, but he's also looked bad. I don't know. I haven't watched that much Mavericks.
Yeah,
just honestly, what I've seen. Maybe I've just caught good Clay nights when I watch.
To be honest, I think that probably is what it is because Clay is like, I feel like he's performed really well in the like 2 or 3 highest profile games he's played in this year, which are like the one, his return to Golden State, his debut, the first game, and then one other game that was pretty big. It was against the Lakers maybe or somebody. Where he's had like really good games, those games. But overall, he's continued to slide from last season. His percentages are down, and he's 4 points less per game.
So yeah, it definitely must just be I catch good Clay games.
Yeah, but he's also struggled a lot recently, and it's not been great with even when Luka and Kyrie went down. How Clay's not really stepped up at all. Has been tough. But yeah, so definitely I feel like it's definitely below what you were hoping with signing Clay, but also I'm not super surprised by.
Oh, remember when the Mavericks could have beat the Celtics if they had Klay Thompson? Remember how, if we would have gotten Clay, we could have beat the Celtics in that series. Stupid idiots.
Yeah, I never agreed to that.
No, I know you
even
didn't,
before the season started, but yeah, some wild people with some wild beliefs out there. And then moving on to number 6 in my power rankings, and they are number 5 in the actual standings, and that is the Los Angeles Clippers, with the one that you were just alluding to.
Yeah.
That team. With which Kawhi, has he played at all since coming back? Like, I know he came back for a little bit. He's played 4 games and averaging 21 minutes per game, 12.3 points. And just to check on his game logs, I want to see which ones he's missed, or which ones he's actually played in, rather, because there's a lot fewer of those. Yeah, he's been back for 6 team games so far. He's played 4 of them. So he's sat 2 games since he's come back. And I believe the first one of those, at least, that he missed since he's come back was because of the fires situation.
With his family.
Yeah, left to be with his family, who I believe was affected.
Because he's from LA, isn't he?
Yeah. Kawhi.
So it was more than just like his house family. It was like family.
Yeah, because he lives in San Diego now.
Okay.
So, that was like the famous thing about when a lot of people were complaining about Kawhi a couple of years ago with the Clippers, how the team bends around him, allows him to do all these things. He takes like his private helicopter to practices and is always late and stuff like that because he lives in San Diego. It's like they wouldn't allow any other of their other players to do that. It's just Kawhi that they allow to do that. But yeah, when he was growing up, when he was a kid, I believe LA specifically is where he's from. I know it's Southern Cal at the very least. But yeah, he looks like I'm not too much of a single game plus minus guy, but in his last outing, he was a plus 46.
Well, that was that like slaughter of the Nets. That does not count.
59-point blowout of the Nets.
Yeah, I was like, I barely count that. Like,
I don't know, 46 point game, like plus minus in less than 24 minutes is pretty nuts. In a game that you win by 59, like that's almost all of the lead right there that they got while Kawhi was in the game.
Yeah.
They won those minutes by 46 and they won the game by 59. It's just that's pretty wild.
I'm not saying that Kawhi's not good. I'm just saying that being like, 46 is a huge number. I'm like, yeah, the Nets like looked like they've heard of basketball in the pregame locker room. It was that bad.
No, yeah, that is very true. That is very true. Things are definitely moving toward the tanking realm in Brooklyn, understandably. They started off the season pretty hot, but anyways, we can get to them next episode. The Clippers, though, is who I have at 6. Kawhi coming back, possibly. Like, looks like, he's starting to play. We'll start to see him hopefully get ramped up and stay healthy, maybe. That's a huge maybe, but if we do, that's kind of like the reason I am putting them up here above the teams below them, is if they have some version of Kawhi, even if it's like just a 24-minute a game version of Kawhi, that still helps them quite a bit with James Harden and Norm Powell being the leaders of this team, who have played really well in those roles, to be honest. Norm Powell is, I think, definitely the most improved player this season. I think he earns that award pretty handedly, even though there's, I think, a lot of good candidates for that this year. It's hard to argue against Norm Powell doing that at his age, 31 season or something? Just jumping from like literally 10 points a game.
Yeah, they'll probably give it to some stupid sophomore jump.
I doubt it. With this kind of, like, we don't usually get this kind of a candidate.
I hope you're right, but history is stupid.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm arguing against. I don't think there's an example of this anytime recently of there being a player like this that hasn't gotten the award. Good.
Well, no, honestly, I almost like watching the couple Clippers games I have. I almost want to issue a formal apology to James Harden, because I think at the beginning of the season I was like, the Clippers are going to be the worst team in basketball to watch, because if Kawhi's not playing, it's going to be 48 minutes of James Harden just being obnoxious. But he's been like a really, really good facilitator.
Oh, yeah.
And more than I thought.
Norm Powell's the lead scorer. Yeah,
like when Kawhi's out, he's like not just gone like time to have a 30-point triple-double and lose by 12. Like, it just has been... Sorry, James Harden. Shout out to you for being like a really good team player.
And honestly, sorry to the Clippers, because their team identity this year has been defensively. They've just been a really good defense, and then James Harden and Norm Powell have been enough on offense. That's kind of been their formula for success. And that's why I feel like, their ceiling's not crazy high, unless you count in the Kawhi factor. And then in which case, the absolute ceiling is very high. But that is a very unlikely ceiling to be reached or even seen, to be honest. But it's there though, I guess. And so that's who I have at 6 rather. I'm not going to attach Jacob's name to this unwillingly. The Lakers are who I have at 7, which I don't love that placement. I could argue with them and honestly the next 4 or 5 teams for who to put here at 7. But record-wise, they've been the best by far. Not by far, but definitely out of those teams there, because they are 6th in the actual standings at 21-17. But the weird things about the Lakers are there's a lot of stretches where they look like they can't guard anything. And then also LeBron James has like one of the worst plus minuses of any star ever this season. Like, it's wild stuff.
I think this is our last LeBron is a force season, because he still randomly has those here's a 40-point triple-double, and you're like, whoa.
Yeah.
But I feel like this is the last season where even the staunchest of LeBron defenders will can't be he's still top 5.
Yeah.
Or he's still top. I don't think top 5's been in the conversation for a while, but I shouldn't say a while.
It's probably top 10 at this point is the conversation to be having.
But I feel like it's gotten to the point where he's not top 10 anymore. I'm sorry. I mean, it's absolutely...
That's what I mean by it's a conversation, because you can say that pretty, it's arguable still, but you could say that and it's realistic.
It's insane that this is his 3rd decade playing basketball. In his teens, his 20s, his 30s, his 4th decade, because he's into his 40s.
Yeah.
But to be and the fact that this man randomly whips out aggressive triple doubles, you're like, what?
He can press that button every once in a while, it feels like.
But instead of it being he needs a game to recharge, it's let's give him a week.
Yeah.
He needs to refuel the tank, which I mean, this is honestly going to go down as the most impressive part of LeBron's legacy, is his just sheer will to be relevant adjacent.
Adjacent.
Because I'm convinced he's going to be a role player and play till he's 45 or older. He's going to be knocking on the door of legitimate regular people early retirement before he quits playing basketball.
He could be. Yeah. But yeah, I think Anthony Davis, going back to the Lakers as a whole more so, I think AD has been the best player on the Lakers for sure.
Unequivocally.
Yeah. And that was a pretty clear thing from the jump with the way that JJ Redick, which I kind of didn't even expect, honestly, I wasn't really anticipating, but the way that JJ Redick shifted the way this team works is just let's center everything around AD on the offensive end. And that has turned out to be a really good decision, to be honest. And they've gotten rid of D'Lo now, traded him off for Dorian Finney-Smith, which D'Lo was definitely not much of a JJ Redick guy in terms of basketball fit, I think they were cool with each other, person to person wise, from everything I saw. There were definitely moments where he got mad at him and stuff that a lot of people saw clips of, but everything that I looked beyond that at, to get more insight on that, it seemed like they were pretty cool with each other still. But yeah, it's just kind of tough when D'Lo, just the type of basketball player he is, IQ wise, doesn't really fit a lot of the things that JJ likes to have out there. Reeves has been more the guy that he has in those spots. Dalton Connect has been a big guy for him also. But yeah, there's just moments on this.
Sneaky in that Rookie of the Year conversation.
Yeah, for sure. Dalton Connect. Yeah. I think he had 9 threes in one game this year. which is just wild. Yeah. But I think that, there's just there's moments on this Lakers team where other teams can really hunt LeBron, honestly, and other players that they have out there alongside LeBron that aren't great defenders at the same time, where it just becomes really tough. And it's all on AD, who's also been, their fulcrum on the offensive end. It makes it hard for him to carry the load on both ends of the floor. But, AD's been having a really good season. And I just want to give him the credit due for that. I know he's injured right now, but overall, though, he's been pretty healthy.
No, AD is why they are in the playoffs as of right now, like without a question. Like it is AD's team. Period. There just happens to be a seat-filling sideshow named LeBron James.
Yeah,
that's a bit disrespectful to LeBron.
Yeah, for sure. But
AD has been an animal.
That's closer to being true, though, than it ever has been, for sure. But yeah, that's my number 7. Number 8 is the Minnesota Timberwolves. This is the main team I kind of wanted to talk about this episode, to be honest. What were you going to say, though? I was going to
say I would have had them at 7.
You had them at 7, which I think is totally fair.
I just feel like all their dysfunction is going to disappear, right? Like it has to. Like,
see, that's where I disagree. This goes back to where the conversation we had on back when that trade first happened. When I signed on, I know what people heard in the episode was actually not all that egregious, like of a disagreement, but because I think you toned it down quite a bit once we actually got on the recording. But I remember when I first hopped on the call and we first started talking about it, you said something about it was basically like given that the Wolves won the trade or something like that.
I thought they did.
What? Yeah, but then when we got into the episode, you didn't say that. I don't know if you remember that, but on the episode, you were like, "I think the Knicks definitely still won the trade, but I don't think it's as bad as everybody's saying." But then you basically laid out your argument, the reasonings why you thought that it was more of the Wolves side of things, where which was a pretty similar thing that I've heard from other people who were on that same side. That was like, Naz Reid was going to
hating mode.
Yeah.
I have like Sixers mode or Knicks hating mode where I just kind of like anything they do is wrong.
And you also hated that the Villanova crew got split up.
Yeah, that was lame. Yeah. Well, that was right after the fight, and I was fired up for my boy, the Big Ragu. I vividly remember this now.
Yeah. But, Karl Anthony Towns leaving the team, like, it was really just the contract situation for him is the reason why I felt like they made that move, which I still think that's the reason why. But, in terms of basketball, though, back at the beginning, like I said, I was like, honestly, I'll say this. The Wolves have been a mess this season for a lot of the reasons why I thought they would be. But honestly, I thought it would be even worse than this. Like, that's how much I hated that trade when it happened. Like, I was like, Julius Randle makes absolutely no sense at all with this roster. I can't imagine him fitting into this. There's actually been some stretches where it looks better than I had ever thought, but still, like, the problems that I was like, this is definitely a problem. There's no way around this being a problem. Those have definitely reared their ugly head. And number one of those, or exhibit A of that, has been Anthony Edwards firing up 10 threes a game, even though he has the fastest first step since Jordan himself and can get to the rim at will. There's no space for him to do so anymore without Cat. Like, him and Cat were just such this, like, a perfect pairing of spacer big and super fast guard that, the big pulls the rim protection away from the basket. That's why I hated him with Gobert. I always wanted them, if they were going to trade one of the bigs, it had to be Gobert.
I feel like we agreed on that when we first talked about it. Because Gobert leaving would have been way better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but, some people would argue that Gobert's number is not near as bad as Cat's in terms of the contract. And then also he wouldn't yield as much of a return probably. There is, lower market for Gobert perhaps. But to me, I'm like, what did they get though for Cat? They got DiVincenzo effectively. Randall's they might just end up losing him for absolutely nothing at all. I would say the most likely way this ends. Sick. For him to just not pick up his player option next year and go sign somewhere else for less money per year, yes, but for a longer stretch, more guaranteed money. Like he'll go sign for like 25 a year for 4 years with Charlotte or something, something like that is what I foresee happening. Because personality wise, he does not really fit all that well here in Minnesota with just along some of the players. With Ant, him and Ant work well together personality wise for sure. They've gelled, which I think is a big credit to Ant. I think he's good at doing that with basically everybody. But the interactions that we've seen between Randall and Gobert is unlike like most things I've seen from two teammates before.
It's like Draymond Gobert on the same team.
Yeah.
They're just like waiting for there to be a colossal there was like a full-on fist fight at T-Wolves practice.
Yeah.
Part 2. And like
yeah, it's been rough. With how much they've visibly not liked each other. I'm
starting to wonder if Rudy Gobert is unlikable. I'm starting to wonder just a little bit. Because there is very few people that are, Rudy Gobert's a good guy.
Mike Conley is one of them.
I feel like Mike Conley would say that about literally anyone.
Yeah, but they also are, that's very fair. But that is one of Mike Conley's closer friends in the NBA, though, is Rudy Gobert.
I guess. I don't know. I just feel like there's, like, if you go back, like, you could do a whole top 10 episode of Rudy Gobert hate feuds, and it would have, like it's like a legitimate list.
Yeah. Well, the Kyle Anderson one, that's another one that, like, they had a fight, for sure, a physical fight in a game in front of millions of people. But I think those guys are cool also, still. Like, they were... Well, yeah, it was just sometimes, me and you could get in a like scuffle like that. Yeah.
Well, not a fight, but a verbal altercation.
You could shove me or something like that, and I would like maybe shove you if tempers were flared enough. I could see that happening.
I'm too big of a teddy bear.
Yeah.
Just kidding. I actually did get mad once. Anyway, it doesn't matter.
Which that reminds me, I actually just put out a clip today from like June. Oh yeah, so you watched it? I still have no idea what you were alluding to there with the times I've been mad at you. You said you remember like specifically one vividly that I've been mad at you
at your house, and it was someone with your Soda Stream. I like spilled syrup or something, and like and I just remember you were just like it almost felt like you were so mad. You know when gets mad, he's like inconsolable.
Yeah, we're still doing the podcast right now.
I thought you were going to cut this part out. That's why
I probably won't. I'll probably keep it.
Oh.
So you can say his name. Yeah, I was just adding in context that nobody else knows who is, but yeah.
Well, the reason I spoke in that way is because I thought you were just going to cut it. Can I just re-go at it and I'll tell the story and just say...
You can say his name.
Well, I wouldn't bring up the acts like a inconsolable, angry person.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
I don't need to air out the dirty laundry on the internet for no reason. Anyway, I spilled. So, like, what I remember is you got that Soda Stream and you got Dr. Pete all the time, Dr. Pepper knockoff, and I spilled a bunch of the syrup and like it went like everywhere. Like it got into stuff. It was bad.
I vaguely remember this now, but I don't remember a reaction to it at all, honestly.
Well, probably because you were blind with rage. You just got, like, so mad that I just, like, went to a different room and just waited.
I literally have zero memory of this. I believe you, but it's just so funny to me that I don't remember that at all. I remember, I remember the effects of it later, where I just remember that Soda Stream that you're referencing. At like my entire time of using that, I just remember there's always being like stickiness on it all the time.
It's because I messed up the order, and it I pretty much essentially what happened was the syrup just got injected into everything.
Oh, you did. Yeah, I see. I remember.
I just did it in the incorrect way.
Yeah,
and there was too much syrup in there, and
it wasn't covered. It was like you like
it was in the thing, but it didn't like lock in right.
Yeah,
and then I pressed it, and then it like injected syrup inside of the Soda Stream, and I tried to clean it, but like it didn't get fixed clearly, and it was this whole thing. So yeah, that's the one time I remember unbridled Logan Rage.
Wow. That kind of surprised me that I would get that mad about that. But
we were smaller.
Okay.
Early high school, maybe even junior high.
Okay. Yeah. I didn't even realize I had SodaStream that long.
The SodaStream was pretty new. I do remember that.
Yeah. Anyways, I still have that SodaStream, by the way. I don't really use it, but I do have it. It's an option. Anyways, though, we can get back to the episode at hand and try to finish up here really quick. These bottom feeder teams. But yeah, the Wolves, though, will just kind of put a cap end on that. It's annoying to me that Anthony Edwards, it's just kind of wasting his talent. Something that you've kind of always gone in about, I don't know anything about the NFL, but what you've said about the Lions with Calvin. Mm-hmm. I almost said Calvin Harris. I almost said Calvin Harris. The DJ.
And then but Calvin Johnson and Barry Sanders and Matt Stafford, but not now.
Yeah.
They're
wasting
cooking
their
now.
But so anyways, I can't remember. Yeah, the Wolves doing that with Anthony Edwards. I kind of feel like with just the schemes of the way they have to play because of their severe lack of shooting on the floor. And
they're going to have a KG situation. He's not going to retire a Wolf. I don't think.
Yeah, for sure. But it's just so hard when.
What if LeBron retires and him and AD play together for a while?
And AD? That wouldn't be bad. Yeah.
I feel like that would get me pumped.
Yeah. No, for sure. And Austin Reeves, him and Reeves are tight from the FIBA team. Yeah.
I thought you were going to say from the recording of, is it Hustlers? That basketball movie with Adam Sandler.
Is Austin Reeves in that?
I don't know. I know it's
Juancho?
Hernan Gomez.
Juancho Hernan Gomez. That's funny. Yeah. But anyways, Ant would be, it's just, he should be a downhill attacker, but he's literally become Steph Curry this season in terms of his 3-point attempts. For a while, he was making them like Steph Curry also. I don't think that's lasted. I'm pretty sure last I checked, he was on a pretty major slump. I don't know if it's continued to be a slump for him, but at one point he was shooting 42 or 43% on 10 attempts a game from three.
Nice.
So he was shooting way too much, but he was making them. So it was hard to say. He's still at 42% from three on the season.
It's pretty good.
10 attempts a game. But I do think it is starting to regress in the past couple weeks.
LaMelo's got to have more threes a game than him. I feel like 50% of LaMelo's shots are deep threes.
At one point, LaMelo was over 13 attempts a game. I don't know if it's still there, but he was 13.6 or something like that.
Tatum's at. He's probably got to be close to double digits. I don't know if he is, though.
LaMelo is at 13.0.
Oh, my goodness.
Attempts per game from three. Tatum, I'd say is probably closer to 10 or 11 would be my guess.
I would have guessed 9.
10.3.
10.3?
Yeah. But I think the 13? Hornets at one point, were the only team that has two players taking more than 10 a game because Brandon Miller was at 10. I don't know if he still is.
Let's see what
Brandon Miller is. And then we'll get back to the Wolves, Brandon Miller, Mr. Alabama. 10.9, so comfortably over 10. 11 and 13 attempts per game is what their two guys are taking.
Some teams used to take 24 threes a game.
Yeah. The Nuggets last season averaged 30 attempts a game as a team.
As a team.
So that's wild.
That is absurd.
But anyways, the Wolves, though, Julius Randle not fitting in well. Not a surprise to me. A surprise to some people. Naz Reid has not really filled in the role but also he hasn't really been given the chance to because Randall's still getting all those minutes. So Naz Reid is playing basically the same exact role he was last year, to be honest. And I don't think Naz Reid has also been shooting all that well. I know that obviously Julius Randle has not been. It's been very rough for Julius Randle, even though it's been worse. It's been better than I thought it would be, to be honest. It's not even that bad, but it's still definitely subpar for sure. But Naz Reid is not that bad. It's about 38%. a little under 38. So, but still, he's just not getting as much of a load or much of a opportunity as you would have liked when you are getting rid of Cat, because Randall's still in the fold here. So that's tough to wheel and deal between those guys. And then DiVincenzo's become, the full-time starter now, which I think has been the right move. But it's still there's still a ceiling on that, that I feel like having Ant as the point guard, there's limitations to that because teams can really basically funnel the ball elsewhere on the court, and then it's hard to get back into the action from there. When they send a double at him right away when he crosses half court, because that's really been his weakness, to be honest, so far in his young career, has been handling the double team. And then it's like they need spacing on their team desperately, mainly for their star and Anthony Edwards. But the problem is all of the spacing they have been getting this season is from that star, Anthony Edwards. So it's kind of it doesn't really do what it's intended to do, that space. It's freed up for other people, though, to do something. Julius Randle to, isolate on the elbow or something for 20 seconds of the shot clock. But yeah, that's my thoughts on the Wolves. Not too thrilled about them, and I don't think you have more optimism that it'll turn around. I don't know, maybe a little bit better than it's been so far, but Mike Conley looks pretty washed at this point, to be honest, too, and he's one of their most reliable shooters, so that's not a great thing also. Jaden McDaniels has been very poor from the three-point line, and also just in a lot of ways offensively, Jaden McDaniels has not performed all that well this season. So yeah, they definitely need some guys to step up for sure if they want to turn things around. And then the Kings is who I have at 9, which this is probably the least good I feel about a team, because I got them right here with the Suns and the Warriors, are kind of like these three here that I feel like I go in any order. But yeah, the Kings is who I have at 9 right now. And honestly, they have turned things around quite a bit with Mike Brown leaving. And I do think that that firing, I think it definitely helped them. But it's one of those things where I don't feel like he deserved to be fired either. Because you just don't see teams do that when a coach is it's just I feel like they were pretty lucky that actually did help a little bit. You know what I mean? It very well could have not helped at all.
Yeah. Who is coaching for them?
Doug Christie has stepped up to be full-time. I don't know if they have hired him on for the full-time position.
Just the interim right now, at the moment. Okay.
Yeah, he's the interim. But the team has really taken to him, and he's also already given out some pretty banger quotes in press conferences. But honestly, he's been pressing a lot of the right buttons. But honestly, I probably would have predicted. I feel like they might have seen a little bit of this uptick, maybe not quite to the same level as they had. I think they, at one point at least, had the best record of 2025 of this calendar year.
Oh,
they have the best record in the league. I don't know if they would be quite that good, but I think they were bound for a bit of a turnaround, even before they let Mike Brown go, to be honest.
Mike Brown has just had nothing about when he gets let go. It's just all a mystery. Everything is a mystery. He just feels unlucky, always. You can kind of see why teams fire him at certain junctures, but you're also I don't know. I feel like things were getting better, or they were going to.
Yeah.
I don't feel like getting rid of him was the need necessarily, but maybe. But then it always works out for the team. Almost always. So maybe
I don't have a good enough map, I guess, to follow along in this of his coaching career. I know he was with the Lakers before, right?
I'm just gonna pull it up.
Yeah, I think he's been a couple places, but I'm pretty sure he was a Lakers coach at one point, wasn't he? Or am I crazy?
Yeah. Okay, so he was the head coach of the Cavs.
Oh yeah, he was the head coach
until
of the Cavs
2010. And then he was at the Lakers from 11 to 12. And then he was back in Cleveland for 13, 14.
For some reason. I don't know why.
And then he was in Golden State as the associate head coach.
Yeah.
Then he was in Sacramento.
So yeah, I remember the Golden State and Sacramento stops, and now that you say Cleveland, that does ring a bell too. Um, yeah, that's very odd. I wonder what the story is on that. That he came back to Cleveland. So he left Cleveland for 2 years to spend in LA and came back for 1 year in Cleveland and was immediately gone, even though like he was there for 82 games, all 82. So that's just odd, but interesting. The thing though about the Kings though that I'd like to touch on is just that, I felt like they were going to be going to have a little bit of a bounce back even with Mike Brown. They were going to trend that way just because I felt like their record was not indicative of the team they had actually been so far. I thought that was a pretty big variance there between how they were performing in terms of like their point differential and how well they were playing teams per 100 and everything. They just had some unlucky breaks at the ends of games. But yeah, so that I just kind of felt like things were going to turn around even if they didn't let him go. But I don't think there's any denying the upside or the good things that Doug Christie has done since he's become.
Also, knowing that's the guy that's going to be your head coach is like way more reassuring. It's like, oh, we have this guy to take over. It's not really that bad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which I don't. Again, we're gonna have to look at somebody's coaching history because I don't. Has he been a head coach anywhere else, Doug Christie?
But even if you haven't been a head coach, he's been
a long time assistant. Yeah, for sure. Actually, no, he hasn't been an assistant all that long. But he is a former Kings player. I knew that. Obviously, that's where I know him from.
Yeah, I would have swore he'd been around longer than that.
Yeah, he didn't start being an assistant coach in the NBA until he was 51, which is kind of surprising. He was on Basketball Wives before that. He was a major star of that cast. Or NBA Wives. I don't remember what that show's called, but you know the show I'm talking about. Oh, you don't?
No.
You never heard of that?
No.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's like a VH1 or MTV or one of those weird channels shows. But yeah, the Kings though, I do like the things that Christie has changed since he's become full-time head coach with Malik Monk playing more and getting the ball more, honestly, scoring a lot more. He had, I believe, it was 6 20-point games all season with Mike Brown. And then for the first 5 games with Doug Christie, he had 4 20-point games in those 5 games. So his immediate turnaround. Devin Carter having his season debut wasn't a change Doug Christie made. That was just Devin Carter becoming healthy after his shoulder surgery. But that also helps. But then the other thing that Doug Christie did was playing Keon Ellis a lot more, like going from like 24 minutes a game to like 30 minutes a game. And so Keon Ellis obviously has been their best defensive player, predictively so, going into the season. I think we all knew that was the only guy on their team that was like going to be a good defensive player.
Sabonis, defensive player of the year vote.
Yeah. So Keon Ellis playing more has been a big thing also, and him being serviceable on offense also has helped a lot. And then De'Aaron Fox, it feels like winning is helping these guys buy into the scheme more. Like there were a lot of rumblings back when Mike Brown was when he was let go, that De'Aaron Fox was, not feeling too happy and probably wanting to, leave town next season when he had the opportunity, because he has that extension looming that he still hasn't signed. It's been like a full year and a half since it's been eligible that he hasn't been signing it, because he wanted to guarantee that the team would be in a good place for him to resign.
Smart move as a player for the Kings. It's a smart thing to do.
Yeah, he wanted to make sure there would be a competitive team around him instead of just, signing the dotted line blindly. And, with DeRozan aging, that's still a question mark for sure, whether or not they will have that. But it is looking better now. And I think winning, just in general, it makes the negative things kind of seem to fade away, and in a lot of situations. So that's been good for the Sacramento Kings. And then on to the next team, I have the Suns. Like I said, they've been a dumpster fire, the most unexplainable one to me, honestly.
No, I think that's like all I have to say. It doesn't make sense. They're just regular bad.
Yeah, it's been weird how bad they've been.
Oh yeah, let's bench Devin or Bradley Beal. That'll work. I'm like, you've got that's helped, but like you've got bigger issues than just that.
Yeah. And honest, I don't know. Some people were saying that, like, conspirating, that's like the reason they did that was to get Bradley Beal to get angry, basically, and waive his no trade clause. Number one, that's not even how a no trade clause works. That's the way a lot of people were phrasing it. But I think there's some people that really knew how a trade clause works that were saying that just meant that he would allow them to be like trade him to a certain team. The thing is though, like, even if you make him, if that's your plan, you make him mad enough to let you trade him somewhere, he still has the power to veto a trade at any time. Like that's the way a no trade clause works. It's not like you can't trade him until he waives his no trade clause and then you can trade him anywhere. That's not how it works. It's whenever there is a trade for him, he can say no at any moment. You know, even if he gets traded to a new team, like which has happened, he got traded from the Wizards to Phoenix. And he still has that power whenever he wants it, which is just such an OP like thing to give a player, and really handicaps you in trying to make a move like this.
Maybe the last one ever. They're,
other than like Steph and Jokic and those guys can get him.
Yes.
But Bradley Beal,
well, to the Wizards he was Jokic.
Comparatively, somewhat, maybe not. I'll push back on that. Denver is a smaller market than Washington. So I would say, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, but I'm just saying they've been such a garbage team. He's like the only remnant of a bygone age, and he was good.
They were pretty good with John Wall.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. He was the only thing left from those John Wall teams where they made those runs and was it second round of the playoffs? I don't know if they ever made the Eastern Conference Finals.
They faced off against the Celtics in the second round back-to-back years.
And those were testy.
Yeah. Both pretty competitive series.
Yeah.
And Bradley Beal was great in those series. So, like, I get wanting to reward him there and stuff like, but the no trade, that's just where that should stop. Like him getting a Supermax deal, I feel like is enough. When you're a guy that's not like you're not an MVP candidate.
Yeah.
If you are even some MVP candidates should get no trade clauses. I just think that it's unique to the very few, like Steph Curry, Tim Duncan. Did you say Shea?
Yeah, like now, Shea.
Yeah, but still, that one is like a little, because it's like he hasn't given everything, his heart and soul. We haven't seen that yet. You know what I mean?
Jokic.
Like Jokic is like, he's the Nuggets' savior. You know what I mean? And I don't even think that was hyperbolic. That was like not a hyperbole. That was me just spitting facts, honestly.
Yeah.
But yeah, those are the few players.
So when he retires, you guys are just happy? And that's it? You're just content with that?
We don't need anything else? Honestly, for a while, the rest of my lifetime, honestly, I'm happy. But yeah, so the Phoenix Suns, it's a weird situation, but the other reasons for moving Bradley Beal to the bench, that is actual basketball reasons, not like some mind game thing that you're doing with him, is that, off the bench, he can focus on just being the scorer in the second unit, and then you can put more reliable role guys around Devin Booker and KD in the starting lineup, which I think has worked a little bit. And it also, in line with the mind games thing, just a more realistic version of that, it's fired Bradley Beal up, fired up a response out of him to be like, like, I'll show you guys, I am still Bradley Beal. I can produce, kind of puts a little bit extra motivation on him when he's coming off the bench. I think that, at least for the first few games he came off the bench, that was a real factor for sure. And then the Yusuf Nurkic for Mason Plumlee one was weird to me, them swapping them, just because, I don't know. I mean, Nurk has been bad for sure, like really bad this season. And I think that's been honestly the number one on the list of why the Suns have been so bad, has been Nurkic, to be honest. But Mason Plumlee at this point is like,
don't ask me to be KD. I'm not Kevin Durant.
Nurkic, yeah. So it's been rough. Nurkic has not been good at just being a role player, and Mason Plumlee, that's the only thing he can do, and he is good at that. So there's that part of it, I guess, that,
Yeah.
balances
And
out or
we're saying
makes some
they're
sense.
500, so it could be worse. But it doesn't make sense why they've struggled the way they did.
Yeah, and they have been playing better of late. They are in the positive point differential in the last 2 weeks. They are plus 0.9 points 100 per 100 possessions, which is good for 12th in the league, which is a lot better than their 19th in the league overall this season. So they are trending upward with those changes. And also, I feel like the other thing that has been the explanation for why the Suns have been so bad has honestly, but it's even not that much of an explanation. It's just kind of a reason. But I guess just hasn't had the same effect that a lot of people thought he would with this team. I don't know. I feel like there's not as much of a clear direction in the way this lineup and this roster is put together. It's more of like a hodgepodge of like throw some basketball players together, see what they can do. And I think Bud is a lot better when there's more of a structure to how the players should fit in. Yeah, so I think that's been definitely a situation there. Ryan Dunn has been a big, good, like feel-good story for them. Although the shooting has fallen off a lot back to where people thought it would kind of be. But early on, the first like 10 games of the season, he was like a good shooter for some reason. And it was like, okay, if he could shoot, then he should have been the number one pick in this draft, probably, to be honest. And he was starting for a while, which I believe is he's starting now instead of Bradley Beal. Is that who they put in there? I think that is.
I have no idea.
I think that is who they flipped in there instead of Bradley Beal.
I've watched like half of a Suns game. I have no idea.
Yeah. One of the only Suns games I've watched this year was one where they were it's probably the best game they played all year. And that was against the Nuggets on Christmas Day. So there's that. The Suns decided to whip that one out of their back pocket, but KD has been really good all season. Devin Booker has had one of his worst years, honestly, since he's
been a star.
Yeah, since he's been a star. I'll put it that way. He's still facilitating really well, averaging like 7.5 assists a game, which is more than you would expect from Devin Booker. But he hasn't been scoring all that much. He's like 23, 24 a game, something like that. And not all that efficient with his shooting splits either. So I think you'll see Devin Booker come back to his normal self a little bit as the season progresses. And I think the Suns will be a little bit better than where they are right now. But I don't know about how much. I thought Tyus Jones was going to be a huge add for them. I do think he could be bigger than what he has been. It's just the effect that he can have on a team has been kind of
mitigated.
Yeah, because they don't give him the ball very much, which I guess is understandable when you have Devin Booker, Bradley Beal, and Kevin Durant on your team.
But it's supposed to like go through him. He's not going to let the ball stop at him. That's why he's so good.
Yeah, but
it keeps going.
Yeah, they basically, Tyus Jones' role this season has been dribble the ball up the court, pass it to Bradley Beal or Devin Booker or Kevin Durant, and never get it again.
There.
Yeah, that's been what it's been, honestly.
It's like the Mario Chalmers of the Heatles.
Yeah, honestly. Just conserve LeBron. Don't make him dribble up the ball every time against pressure. You do that, and then give him the ball once you're across half court. And they have Monte Morris also, but he's kind of been buried in the rotation for the most part doing that. I don't know. They have a lot of like players on the team, just not a lot of players that fit together.
They just feel like a lot of names. Like, oh yeah, wow, this team should be great. And they're like, wait, nothing is working.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But
so there's that. The Suns I have at 10, and then number 11 is the Warriors, who if I would have showed my former self this list, like my former self from a month into the season, I would have been like, you're crazy. What do you mean the Warriors are 11? But they have been on a colossal like slide since they started off the season as the best in the West. They're nowhere close to that now. They're at 500. They're 20-20. I'd say the main thing for them has been Buddy Hield coming back down to earth. He started off looking like the greatest possible replacement for Klay Thompson that exists.
He looked like old Klay, but like a half step down.
Mm-hmm.
And that is now he's like Clay now. Like it's
no, yeah,
same.
for real. I saw a graphic the other day that showed his points per game per month this season, and it was October was like 25 points a game. November was like 19 points a game. December down to like 14. Oh. And then January it's like 8 or something like that. It might even be more drastic than that, to be honest. But I was kind of like taming the taper there because I was thinking I had another month to go, but then it was like January was the next one, so that I had to like go down farther. So I don't know what it is honestly, but it was in the 20s early on, and now it's in the single digits. I know that for a fact. So that's been a huge factor for the Warriors, and also their lineup rotation being so deep was like really cool at the start of the season when everybody was playing super well. But then it just didn't last all that long, because now it's like, yeah, you're playing 12 guys a game, but like some of them, like they're not going to be able to continue to perform in that small of a sample that well. Like that's just why you don't see teams play 12 guys a game consistently like that. So yeah, that's been another development. And then Steph Curry, honestly, he's just not a top 10 player anymore. Honestly, like what you were saying about LeBron, I kind of feel like we're having that discussion now with Stephen Curry is where we're at with them. And that's just Father Time is undefeated, you know? But I feel like Golden State owes Steph so much that like they should just write it out. But it seems like the front office and what their decisions are right now, it seems like they're almost like trying to play both sides, like the two timelines thing still.
And that never works.
Yeah.
Ever.
But it's like, oh, we don't want to give up our future because, you know, Steph, you don't have a lot of time left, but also you're Steph Curry and you've given everything to this franchise. We probably should do that. So we don't want to completely not do that. Yeah, so it's been a bit of a weird, and we've seen Steph be the most unhappy. I feel like he's been just doesn't look happy, and he's had some crazy quotes that I didn't think were real at first when I first saw him about just being really brutally honest about the direction of the franchise and decisions that have been made, saying that they've got like good cracks up in at the top of the draft, but they did not draft very well. Like he was like James Wiseman, you know, I love Wise. I love James Wiseman, but you know, we had the number 2 pick and we picked Wise. It's like, wow, that's rough. That's a rough quote. I mean, it's true. It's true.
But tough.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll see what happens there, but I'm not super, I don't think there's a lot of hope to be had with this Warrior season. The ceiling of it looks like they're going to be in the play-in range at best.
Maybe.
They're at 11 right now, so they're outside of the play-in officially at the moment.
And I feel like the Spurs are going to like go up. I feel like their trajectory is up.
Oh, really? You think
so? As
the
season continues, yeah.
They could. They started off really well. They were at the 8th seed for a while.
I think insanely up, but like, I mean, they're what? They're 3 games back from the 6th seed. It's not like they're in the pits. Yeah.
Is that the official number, 3 games? Because of the difference of what they played. They're only sorry. They're 3 losses back. Yeah, sorry, so that works.
They are, in terms of games back from OKC, they are 14 and a half games back, and the Lakers are at 12, so I rounded in my brain without looking at the games back category.
So that's even closer.
That's like literally, they're almost a playoff team. It's that close.
Yeah.
They are a half a game behind the Suns. Yeah, so they're right there, and I just feel like Wemby is absurd. Just absurd.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, for sure.
And I love the Castle pick more and more every game.
Yeah, I do too. He's sneaky, might be the best player from the draft, to be honest.
Well, this draft's going to be weird because we talked about it at the draft. There's like a lot of guys that you feel like could stick in the NBA, but no one's going to be like world-shattering, world-breaking. But they're all going to be really valuable to good teams at some point. And Castle looks like he's going to be, if he sticks around in San Antonio, part of the Wemby dynasty because...
Yeah, I mean, he could be there. Who knows? This is like obviously projecting with a very positive view.
Yeah.
But who knows? He could take several leaps and be the number 2. He could be the co-star with Wemby. So that's not guaranteed, but he definitely has that.
Tony Parker to the Tim Duncan.
Yeah. No, for sure. But yeah, so the Spurs is who is at 12 for me and in the standings. That was the next team. And they haven't won a game since the Nuggets won, the first one of that Nuggets back-to-back.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because I know that they were at 18 wins before that game, and then they were at 19, and that's what they're still at. So it also seems like they must have not played very many games.
They did they got one postponed against the Lakers, and then they beat the Lakers.
So they got that win got them to 18 against the Nuggets?
18 I guess.
Wins? Oh.
Because they beat the Nuggets, then they lost in overtime, then they lost to the Bulls by 4, lost to the Bucks by 16. One of the games against the Lakers got postponed, beat the Lakers by 24, lost to the Grizzlies by 14, and now they're playing the Grizzlies again.
Okay. Yeah, makes sense.
So since the new year, they've only won 2 games.
Mm-hmm. So they have been on a bit of a slide.
2 and
6, maybe?
6. 7 is inbound, whether it's good or bad.
Oh, gotcha.
They're 2 and 5. Or they're 2 and 4 going to be 5, depending. Anyway, it doesn't matter. They haven't played very many games because games got postponed.
Yeah. Yeah. Did they have another one postponed against the Hawks? Or is that a different
would be a different team.
Yeah. I just saw that because I was confused why there was a non-LA game it was the Rockets. That's who it was. But I was like, why is there a non-LA game being postponed? It was because the Hawks in Atlanta, they had 2 inches of snow.
Yep.
Which is funny that they postponed a game for 2 inches of snow, but it also is in Atlanta. Yeah.
They probably have the same number of snowplows as like Buffalo County. They're probably not ready.
Buffalo
in Atlanta
County.
That's just the county I'm in.
Yeah. In Nebraska.
In Nebraska.
I forgot that.
I just picked them. Anyway.
Yeah.
It's probably just because they're not prepared at all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, it definitely is. It's just it was funny reading that.
It's that same system that dumped 18 inches in Manhattan, Kansas.
Yeah, it was supposed to hit us really bad, and then it just didn't. It went south.
Warm air or dry air just kept pushing it south, and then I-70 through Kansas just got obliterated.
Mm-hmm. I heard St. Louis was buried also. Yeah. But anyways, so that is where the Spurs are for me at 12. Chris Paul has been a big help to them. We haven't talked at all about the Jokic and Wemby matchup, although I feel like that deserves more time than what we have left. So honestly, we might table that for later when we talk about the Nuggets. But the Pels is who I have at 13. They are 15th in the actual standings, but I think they are better than the record has been because of all the injuries.
They won tonight.
Oh, did they? So they have 11 wins now, maybe?
Yep.
Okay.
Unless maybe it's already updated. I don't know. I just saw that they won, and Zion had a pretty solid game.
Yeah. Okay. So Zion is back and playing, which he played a few games, but he was kind of in and out since he's come back. But yeah, he's looked good since he's returned, which is always good for them. And so since they have him back and Trey Murphy, I don't know if he's back yet, but he's been injured. Brandon Ingram's been injured. But if, CJ McCollum has also missed his fair share. So once they get everybody back, I feel like they're definitely better than number 13, but I don't feel like I can just give them full credit for having everybody back. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm just putting them above the other bottom teams here.
Honestly, with how competitive the West is, they might have already been in too big of a hole to climb out. They might already be done.
Yeah.
Not that their team isn't deserving of being in the playoffs, but you're going to have to be insane
to get to the top 10. That's going to be really hard.
Slog. I mean, you're starting 10 games back almost on one of the play-in spots, and there's some good teams ahead of you. It'll be tough.
More than 10 games, yeah, because they've played 2 more games. And
yeah.
So that's tough. It's probably like, what is the number? Is it 10.5 or 11?
They are from the 10 seed. They are 11 games back.
11. Yeah, so that's tough. A lot of ground to make up, but I still feel like they're better than the Blazers and the Jazz is who I have below them. Although the Blazers are making that kind of a conversation this year. They've been pretty feisty. They only have 13 wins, but they have been a good watch, to be honest, in a lot of these games. I've seen my fair share of Blazers games, seeing as they're in the Nuggets division. One of the worst losses of the season for the Nuggets was against the Blazers. That came down to the wire. And it was, Anthony Simons, game winner, which it was a tough, I kind of want to forget about that game, to be honest. But, the Blazers, though, with Chauncey Billups, honestly, I'm going to be honest, I thought that Chauncey Billups was not a very good head coach for, like his start so far. I was like, I don't know if he's even any good. But to be honest, I think that this team really, he's, like, got this team, really bought into him, like, so far, and they're playing for him, and I think Denny Avdia has been, even though he had a really rough start, I think he's starting to pick it up. Scoot is still, I think, a pretty major disappointment, although he did just have like a really crazy random game. I don't even remember what it was exactly, but he had a big night. But overall, though, the season is looked not very good at all. But, they still have some other guys on their team that, like, I was pretty excited about the team going in, not to win very many games. Just I liked the guys on their team.
As a concept, yeah.
Yeah. Toumani Camara has been one of my main guys, and he's definitely continued to be really good. And honestly, is a weird, like, wrinkle in that Nurkic deal that, like, it's like, how did they just throw him in? With because they got Nurkic, the Suns gave up Toumani Camara and DeAndre Ayton to get Nurkic, which with just Ayton for Nurkic straight up is like, you probably lost that trade as the Suns.
You could argue that the best player of those three so far this season
is Toumani Camara, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, it's not perfect, but there's like a world. Where you could convince me that that's been the best player so far this season. He's
just a dirty work, like, do all of the things that very few players do. He's like in the same vein as like Amen Thompson and Tari Eason, but he's even bigger than those guys, honestly. So it's been, I really like him, honestly. He's going to be a player in the NBA for a long time on good teams. I will guarantee that. But and the other thing that just reminded me of with the Nurkic thing, I forgot to mention with the Mason Plumlee thing. It's just so funny, the fact that this is a situation now that Mason Plumlee is getting started over Yusuf Nurkic. He's replacing Yusuf Nurkic in the starting lineup. Back when the Blazers made that deal to get Nurkic, they gave up Mason Plumlee and Will Barton and a bunch of stuff to get Nurkic, and it was like viewed as this like, oh, that's a huge upgrade that they upgraded from Mason Plumlee to Yusuf Nurkic. And now Mason Plumlee is replacing Yusuf Nurkic in the starting lineup all these years later. It's just so crazy. Even though Mason Plumlee is well older than Yusuf Nurkic, you would think that by this point, like, Yusuf Nurkic would be the better player. But, that is also not factoring in all of those pretty catastrophic leg injuries that Yusuf Nurkic has gone through and whatnot. So I will give them that, but it's just funny when you boil it down to those simple, unique factors. And then the next team, which is the last team in this Western Conference, is the Utah Jazz, who are painful to watch now.
I don't know if I've watched a single minute of Jazz basketball.
Oh, really? I've actually watched a lot more, because we played them like 3 times already, the Nuggets. And I've actually watched them in a couple other games too. And at the beginning of the season, it was not that bad. Like, they were losing a lot of games, but they were still playing hard. They weren't playing Markin in a lot of games, but they were still playing hard. Now they're at the point that they were resting Walker Kessler the other night. They're just like, yeah, he's not playing. We don't really have a reason.
We request Cooper Flag humbly.
Yeah.
Also, I saw the greatest tweet ever. Somebody said Cooper Flag is the LeBron James of Gordon Hayward's, and I couldn't stop laughing.
That's like the best example of one of those like thing. I've heard a lot of those before,
Those,
but
like,
that's a
that
really
one
good
is
one.
On the
Yeah.
nose. It was so good.
Yeah. No, that is very good. I like that one a lot. On that note, that can end this episode. It's been a long one, but it's been good to be back and to be recording an episode. So
maybe my voice won't sound so terrible next time we record. Maybe.
Yeah. I've put down a lot of the usage for this episode, which I don't know if that will continue because it's not a great formula for success, I feel like, for our team. But it's got a ceiling on it. We're pretty limited. But once we get back to full strength, maybe we'll climb the standings, you know?
Who knows?
Anyways, done making that metaphor way too long. Thank you guys for listening. Please check back next episode. We love you. We appreciate you. Stay happy. Stay healthy. We will talk to you guys next episode.
Peace.